It's the Wrestling Caucus, episode 4. I'm Peter A.
Smiley Ariaga.
And you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, on Twitter at Wrestling Caucus, and on Instagram at The Wrestling Caucus, and on Facebook, The Wrestling Caucus. Now, today we're going to talk about something that is not really talked about all that much in the pro wrestling world, and it's kind of, high-key looked down upon, even though that this particular style of wrestling is very innovative and it kind of has almost a big bang effect in the pro wrestling world that not a lot of people talk about. And we have a very special guest on the caucus today who knows so much about pro wrestling and this specific style of pro wrestling that that we need to shine a light on. And we're talking about hardcore wrestling, deathmatch wrestling, and we have a very long-time friend of ours, Elton, on the show today. How are you, sir?
I'm doing terrible. How are you?
Horrible.
We got to just do what we can. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. So I want to just dive on into the beginnings of hardcore and deathmatch wrestling. I was watching today an interview with Dory Funk Jr. and he was talking about the rules of the Texas deathmatch, and this is 1981, I think. So do you think that is the beginning of what we know as hardcore deathmatch wrestling, or whatever you want to call it?
81? No.
No.
I would say it depends on what you want to call hardcore wrestling. Like, are we talking about just brawl style where you're fighting in the crowd and you're throwing each other, over the top rope and, kind of closed fist stuff, like where there isn't a lot of holds? Or are we talking about weapons matches?
Oh yeah, that's the thing I want to know, because when watching some of these matches or clips of some of these matches, you see Dusty Rhodes is bloodied up, Ric Flair is bloodied up, and the match doesn't stop until there's no pinfalls necessarily. You just the winner is the one that incapacitates their opponent. So is that like a genesis of what FMW, et cetera, Big Japan started to do? Do you think that's where it kind of started?
I would go as far, but I mean, all right, briefly, I would say that the Texas Deathmatch, I think that the first one was in 81. I don't know if the year is correct on that, because I have a feeling that Texas Deathmatch and that whole style that was really big in Memphis, that was the first of that style where I guess it was more, like there was weapons. Sometimes someone would pull out a spike. I would say all that stuff began in the 50s, back when they started using color just to get heat, because red equals green. That's just a fact. A lot of people like to say, no, that's not true. If you have a good enough, storyline, you can do just fine. Thing is, though, is like I said, red equals green. Always. And in the 50s, that's when they started experimenting with color, blood. And they even had the Brass Knuckles Championship in Texas and generally in the South. And like I said, that goes all the way back to the 50s. So when you look at where I guess everything went, I would say it really began with those blood feuds between guys like Bruno would have them with people, Koloff would have them with people. This is like right after the era of Gorgeous George, I would say. But the thing was, even in his era, once again, they were using color. So, yeah, I would say that the real genesis of like the weapons type of stuff was probably those Texas death matches. However, also in the California territories, they were doing a lot of stuff like that. But like I said, once again, we're going back to the 60s, the 70s. Yeah. Dory, though, like I said, I don't know if his year is correct with 81. He might, I mean, it's Dory Funk Jr. He knows.
This was the interview that I watched. The interview that I watched took place in I think 1981, early 80s. Like that, the interview that I'm talking about. Not like, because Dory said in the interview that his dad would do these Texas death matches. So there's no way that the start of it can happen in the 80s. No, that's ridiculous. It obviously goes back way before that, but I just wanted to know like where this it all began. But you explained it, so that yeah. So
Like, this is very informative for me because, like, the earliest like memory I have of any violent match is like in WWE is probably or any or wrestling period was like I remember seeing John Cena and Bradshaw in an I Quit match and No Way Out. That was like the first extremely violent match that I saw. But and then as I started to grow and learn that like hardcore wrestling was much more than that. Like, do you
yeah, we'll
think?
definitely talk about how mainstream wrestling kind of incorporated that. But yeah, I mean, if you're a kid and you're seeing that for the first time, like, well, this is what quote hardcore can be. But yeah, so I guess when we're talking about weapons matches and barbed wire, etc., do you think that Onita and FMW is that the start?
Oh no, definitely not.
Okay.
That stuff was, like I said, the Southern Territories and Japan. Perfect examples: Bruiser Brody matches, or even before I get into Brody because he's really important to this topic.
Excuse
I
me.
saw a match recently between it was Misawa, but he was wrestling as Tiger Mask 2 against the Great Kabuki. It started off very, very technical. However, like I don't know the ins and outs of how this match came to be. I don't know if they had a feud at the time. I do know that they wrestled one or two times before it, but it started as a very technical match, and then Kabuki kept getting out wrestled, out wrestled, out wrestled. Now the psychology played in, where Kabuki just started, doing dirty, underhanded tactics, doing things that were, especially back then. I think this was 80, 82, 83. This match happened like December 83. I think it happened. So in the middle of this technical match, Masao is just sick of it. Flips out, starts closed fist punching him, throws him out of the ring, beats his head against the post, takes a chair. This is, I wouldn't say it was hard way. I would say he probably cut himself somewhere, Kabuki. He just whips a chair out of the front row and starts smashing his brains in, unprotected. This is before people were taking, because later on, even before everything we know about concussions today, this is before people put the hands in front of the face and let your hand take most of the shot. He was just getting his brains busted in, and he gets up, blood everywhere. I mean, it looks like a murder scene. Blood everywhere, blood all over the ring, all over the outside. Fans have blood on their fucking lap, and I don't know if that'd be considered a hardcore match necessarily, but stuff like that where you would just pull a chair out of the front row, or the famous Funk and Harley Race would always do this when they would go on the timekeeper table and do a pile driver through the table. Or sometimes the table wouldn't break and the table would fall over and it would just look devastating. So there was that type of thing. There was also, I don't know if you ever seen it's on YouTube. They probably had other matches like in other territories, but in All Japan, did you ever see the match between it was Brody versus Funk, and Hansen was on the outside and Dory was on the outside. Did you? It's a
No.
very famous match.
No, no.
Oh my god, I gotta look that up.
So the crowd's going fucking crazy because at the time cowboy movies were really, really popular in Japan. So you got these big brutes, Stan Hansen, Bruiser Brody. Stan Hansen looks like a crazy drunken cowboy out of a western. Bruiser Brody's this big scary behemoth who draws a cajillion dollars. And then you have the Funks. Once again, same thing pretty much, just not as physically big, but they drew. I don't know if they drew as much as Hansen and Brody, but they were probably top 10, definitely top 10 draws. Um, the match was just a bunch of punches to the, and then it spilled out to the ring. Bro, Brody, because he was fucking crazy and he knew Terry Funk could handle it because he's crazy too, swings the side of a chair right into the side of his face, busts his ear open. Apparently, Terry Funk's hearing is still fucked up from this spot. They're just punching the ever living crap out of each other, choking each other with chains. And this is a normal method. It was thrown out. It was like it was just a big disqualification. So that was a great example at the time of the Japanese kind of getting used to that style because it was done in small doses and then it gradually became the norm. And this happened in All Japan. Like we remember All Japan for, Giant Baba, like I said, Masawa, Kobashi, guys like that. They were having wild brawls at the time. But the thing was, it wasn't really considered hardcore wrestling. I think at that time, though, in that era, sorry if I'm talking too much, but
No,
like
no, please.
in that
Keep
era,
going.
especially the mid '80s, where I would say the genesis of that real, I mean, like, the barbed wire and the chains and the fire and stuff like that, was the WWC, the World Wrestling Council, Carlos Colon. Because Abdullah the Butcher, and Abdullah the Butcher in Japan as well. Abdullah the Butcher, people don't realize this in America, but Abdullah the Butcher in Japan was as big as Stone Cold was in 1999. They made movies based off this guy, horror
Yeah.
movies.
Yeah, that
Like
fork is iconic.
Yeah.
yeah, and
It-
he would come out, do the most dirty things. He was just a dirty fucking wrestler, and people were terrified of him. And he brought that gimmick everywhere. The thing was, in the United States, you can't do that in the WWF at the time.
nah.
And Puerto Rico, though, they would kill for that stuff. The fans would go crazy. Same with Japan, the fans would go crazy. And I would say that, like, the first guys that incorporated that as a part of their gimmick was probably Abdullah the Butcher, Bruiser Brody, um, and a lot of those guys in the World Wrestling Council. However, I don't know as much about the World Wrestling Council. I know a lot about the bad stuff, like Brody getting butchered in the shower, but, like, I would say that Puerto Rico was probably where it was the most normalized, the fastest in history, I would say.
And what
Like
we're talking about, yeah, go ahead, Michael.
no, I was saying like I think that's like one of my favorite things about like just hardcore wrestling in general is like the psychology, and it's something that's easily overlooked. Like something as simple as like, for example, Funk and Onita, the exploding barbed wire time bomb match. Just something as simple as like getting in the ring. Like Funk, it didn't occur to me when Funk was on his way to the ring. I kept thinking, how the hell are these guys going to get in the ring? Like even something as simple as getting in the ring, he had to do like approach with extreme caution. Even like or like locking up in the ring, they had to like like okay, who's going to hit the barbed wire first? It was that terror is ever present. It's amazing.
It's intimidating. The ring's about to explode.
Hell yeah. Especially like in the end, like the 5 minute counter, like, oh my god, what the hell's gonna happen? And I realized, oh wait, a time bomb. Oh yeah, it's gonna explode.
Yeah, pretty much. And like, and I don't mean, because this is jumping way too far ahead, but I'll just say this real quick. The There's a big difference. Nick Gage talked about this in this one shoot interview I watched with him. There's a big difference, in my opinion, between good deathmatch wrestlers and what they call, like, this is a term that's not really used by fans. It's almost like an insider term if you're a deathmatch guy. There's the deathmatch wrestlers and there's the hack and slashers. The hack and slashers are the types that kind of like Madman Pondo. I don't know if you know who that is,
No.
but like these
Writing that
loser
down
indie
now.
guys. Hmm?
No, I'll say I'm writing that down right now. Like Madman Ponto, you said.
I mean, I wouldn't write his name down. His matches are terrible. Like,
Oh god,
he's
that's just what I know.
a hack and slasher. His matches have absolutely no psychology to them whatsoever. He just pulls out a weapon and starts cutting you up, and it's like, why
Oh
are you
god,
doing this? Like, that's just what, like, and like he's trying to be intense. He can't work to save. I've seen him fuck up things that people learn 2 months into being a wrestler. Like, I'm not a wrestler, but I've seen people who are very, very green, especially like when I go to some indie shows like locally, and you see guys have like a dark match, and they're only like 6 months into whatever they're doing. They can do like a simple scoop slam. Guys like Pondo or lots of those Juggalo Championship Wrestling, like ICP would hire anybody. Madman Pondo was their champion for like 3 years. They just don't really have it. A guy like Nick Gage, when you watch his matches, they're not all. I mean, they do get very violent, but there's a reason for the violence and the intensity. Guys like that, I think, like Pondo or I don't know why he's the only one I can think of off the top of my head, because there's so many, especially in CZW, that and XP. Oh my god, XPW. That was the fucking. That was the like one of the worst hardcore wrestling rosters ever. But
Yeah, I
anyway,
got a
like I
lot of
said,
questions about that later.
yeah, I'm jumping way too far ahead. But I was just gonna say, like, to me, there's a big difference between um, guys who are the quote unquote hack and slashers that just come in and that's just what they do, and it's like, there isn't really much to it, to me at
it's
least.
it's kind of like the difference between like in general wrestling, like the difference between like a guy that just does a bunch of moves or someone that builds to their moves, right?
Pretty much, yeah. But these guys are less. talented physically, so they take out a barbed wire baseball bat and they just go start swinging. And yeah,
Uh,
it's cool the first time, but it's like I need a reason for it the second time. I mean, after a while, you get desensitized, and that's a big reason why companies like CZW aren't doing too well. IWA Mid South became a garbage wrestling federation, and then they had to start hiring guys like Samoa Joe and CM Punk and Chris Hero and Ruckus and guys who really good. But then you had, once again, I keep saying his name. I gotta pull up a Wikipedia of like deathmatch wrestlers or something, because the only one I could think of that sucks ass is Pondo. But like, by some chance Ponzo listens to this, I'm sorry, but he's terrible. But yeah, I think that nowadays though, the people who book modern, especially in America, because America had yeah, we'll get to that later. Let's talk about the 80s, because I'm jumping way too far ahead.
So like the early deathmatch types, like the barbed wire matches, exploding cages, the time bomb stuff, that had its origins in Japan in FMW, right?
The real wacky stuff like
like the
the
Yeah.
exploding cage matches and whatnot.
that's an Onita thing. Yeah, that's FM. Yeah, that's like an FMW Onita, because like Onita, the way he promoted his company originally was he said, "Hey everyone, watch FMW," and he jumped off a fucking bridge.
No, no
That's a
way.
hell of a way to promote a company.
He
Jesus.
was he was crazy. He was, and so I love Onita, but he was fucking crazy. And I believe there's Yakuza rumors, but I don't want to put anything out there. But I'm just saying that like FMW was a shady fucking business. A lot of weird stuff was going on, but apparently, I mean, not saying Onita's a shady guy, but yeah, it began like the real, I guess, it like the wacky stuff, like the exploding barbed wire, pool of piranha matches, which they actually
Yeah.
did have by.
Oh my god,
And
that's
the scorpion
terrifying.
matches too. The scorpion death matches. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, there was crocodile matches. Yeah.
Does that have anything to do with the move, the Scorpion Deathlock? Is like the
no,
origin of that?
absolutely not.
Oh god.
If it did, Sting would have been in it. And Sting, I saw Sting take a thumbtack bump in TNA, and I'm like, why in God's name is he doing? And he had a broken ribs. Anyway, I'm jumping
Ah.
ahead.
What can you tell me about Big Japan in the mid '90s? I know that kind of was two guys from All Japan, Shinya Kojika and Kendo Nagasaki. And is there anything that any kind of stars? Well, I guess for lack of a better term, anything notable that you've seen from Big Japan?
Absolutely, in the 2000s. In the 90s, I did not sadly see as much. Now, when FMW kind of fizzled in like FMW, excuse me, FMW, they kind of, it's kind of hard to pinpoint when they fizzled. I don't even remember the exact year they went out of business, but then they came back. But anyway, they fizzled, I would say, when Hayabusa paralyzed himself. Um,
How did he paralyze himself?
Botched moonsault.
Oh my
He
god.
did a second rope, a lion tamer, pretty much.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling us about this. Oh my god.
And he just he couldn't get up, and it was over. And what's crazy was that the rumor, I don't know if it's a rumor or I don't think it's a rumor. He either signs a WWF contract or he was about to. He was, I mean, like months away from debuting in the WWF once like the run of, I think it was the run of Survivor Series 2002 stories were over. I think that they were going to throw him in with Dragon or Rey Mysterio Jr.
Oh man.
They were
Oh my
so high on.
god.
There's even photos of if you want to look these up, of him at SummerSlam 2006 in his wheelchair. There's photos of him with John Cena, Edge, Lita, Vince. There's a picture of him and Vince and Shane.
Holy
They
crap.
know him. Like, they did have some form of a business relationship with this guy when he was an active wrestler. So it's a shame that we lost Hayabusa so quickly, because his career was what, like, I mean, he was like in All Japan, then he wrestled without a mask, and then like he became like, you know, the legendary Hayabusa, like by like I would say like 97, where he was having these amazing, you know. No, I would even say before that. I would say like 94. He just became like one of the hottest things in wrestling. Now, what's crazy though is that like we're talking about FMW. FMW is absolutely, in my opinion, a deathmatch company, especially with women's deathmatch wrestling, because a lot of people were very sensitive to that stuff. Which is basically was just definitely a double standard. But their stars, just about all their stars. I mean, maybe Mr. Pogo wasn't the most talented work. To be honest, I've never seen Mr. Pogo in something that wasn't a death match. But all their stars were super talented. Onita is super fucking talented. He's a super worker. He had great matches, and he even started
An
I believe in
amazing
All Japan.
DDT.
Hmm?
He had a phenomenal DDT. Like I
he
loved
was
it.
he was great. Onita's great even without weapons, and to me that really does, you know, that is a sign of, once again, the hack and slashers and guys that can really, really go in there and work, have a really violent, brutal match, and sell tickets. Because FMW, like you've seen these shows, they drew humongous crowds. People were into FMW. I guess you can say it was like the number three company at the time. I mean, they definitely were bigger than Michinoku Pro, but I would say, yeah, FMW was the first company to really do the wild, 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 wild style of deathmatch wrestling, and then what you call it, Eddie Gilbert, was it Eddie Gilbert? Who's the first booker of ECW before Paul took it over?
Oh shit.
Was it Eddie Gilbert? It was Eddie Gilbert, I think. I might be totally
When it
wrong
was
though,
Eastern
but
Championship Wrestling.
yeah,
Fuck.
and it was a subsidiary of the NWA.
Yeah.
I think it was Eddie Gilbert. I might be totally wrong, but anyway, once Paul Heyman saw that,
Todd Gordon.
Todd
Right?
Gordon
No.
was the promoter, and he
Okay.
was a booker. But the thing was, I'm gonna look into this, but just yeah. But anyway, he once they saw it and they caught wind of it, and they already knew that bloody, you know, not death matches or straight up weapons matches, but like chain matches. They would draw humongous crowds in Memphis, or those Jerry Lawler bloodbaths in the late '80s, or like you said, like the Ric Flair Dusty Road, like the Magnum TA feud with I think it was Tully Blanchard when they had that bloody cage match, and he was fucking stabbing his face with the spike. That was like what, '87. So yeah, like I would say that America was as a whole was a bit sensitive because that stuff was only regional. Um, but yeah, your question was about BJW. I have no idea how we got here.
But no,
Um,
no, actually, no, that's perfect because um, when ECW kind of evolved into extreme championship wrestling, do you think that it was inspired by FMW or do you think it was a blatant ripoff?
no, it was inspiration because I don't think it was as violent as FMW, because like they did try the exploding matches like at a house show. Balls Mahoney and Axel Rotten, they were supposed to. This is like a piece of ECW lore. It's the fan cam is on the internet somewhere. Balls Mahoney and Axel Rotten were going to have an exploding barbed wire board match where every time they got hit by this board, it would explode for some reason.
Oh
So
man.
they're bracing themselves for this explosion to the head. Nothing happens, and they're like, "What the fuck? It's not going up." So then, in the middle of the match, when they're expecting it to not blow up, it blows up in both their faces, and they're like, they didn't use fingers. It's
The
like,
element of surprise. Good lord.
oh yeah. And the
No,
fans are pissed because it was being built as an exploding device. So when it wasn't blowing up, they're like, ah, fuck, I guess it's not going to happen. Then out of nowhere, bang! And it's like, oh, shit.
You never know, man. Like, since we got to ECW, I have to ask, like, what are the origins of the Taipei Deathmatch? Because I remember when I first saw one as a kid, I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, I don't even remember who was in the match. I'm just like, what the? This is ridiculous. But it was entertaining. But it was just like, what do you think about that? What was the origins of the Taipei Deathmatch?
I can honestly say I assume that it took place in a place called Taipei. I got no
Huh.
idea the first time it happened. I would assume Puerto Rico. It sounds like a weird thing that Carlos Colon would have booked. I don't. I'm gonna be honest. I have no idea the origins. I've seen the ECW ones and the rematch. Like there was a few of them, but it's such a stupid idea, and it's so dangerous because it's like you're putting glass in each other's like right near each other's eyes and throats. It's like
Like, for those listening, pretty much Taipei Deathmatch is people when they tape up their hands, put super glue on them, and then they put it in glass and they box each other. That's basically it. That's basically it for those listening. You're like, what the fuck is this?
This is
Yeah. So
great stuff.
I
look
mean,
it up. Look it up. Like, for anyone listening, look it up, please.
and what's crazy was that in IWA, all right, so it was Axel and Ian Rotten. Ian Rotten's like, I guess we're talking about hardcore wrestling. He was like one of those. When CCW folded, there was all these like upstarts. I mean, CZW when ECW folded, CZW was already around for like 2 or 3 years, and so was ICW. So was like there was a few hardcore companies. XPW. There was a few hardcore companies that were around, and they would always want to do rematches of Axel and Ian in the Taipei death matches, and there was like a few of them. There's one in the middle of like 2004 that happened, and then at Hardcore Homecoming, which was basically the reunion show for ECW that happened, I think the night or 2 nights before One Night Stand happened, the original One Night Stand. Yeah, they had another one. They had the rematch to the Taipei Deathmatch, and it was fucking
God.
horrible. And it's like, yeah, this idea just doesn't work, guys. But it's Ian Rotten. He's the biggest fucking. He's the epitome of a scumbag shady promoter, so it doesn't really surprise me that he would try to rebook that over and over and over again.
What do
I
you think
think
was the
like
worst? I'm sorry. Wait, what were you saying,
no, no,
Gator?
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Like, I gotta ask, like, what do you think was the worst idea? Like the brawl for all or the Taipei Deathmatch?
Oh, the bro. Well, it's because I mean, like, it's apples and oranges. I would say that the brawl for all caused more long term damage because the Taipei deathmatch. It's two fucking morons punching each other with glass. It's like you want to know what worst case scenario, you blind each other,
Yeah.
and then
Worst case scenario, they're blind.
and Axel, I love Axel Rotten, and he passed away like I think 3 years ago. Like Axel Rotten was one of those guys. Like yeah, he wasn't the best wrestler or worker, but like him and Balls Mahoney as a tag team, like that was like one of my favorite tag teams as a kid. Still is. Like
Amazing.
they had awesome matches. The thing was they were both legitimately crazy. They would go if you see any interview with Balls, New Jack, Sonny, they would come to the ring pill drunk, which if you don't know what pill drunk means, it's when basically you just drink a ton of alcohol and then you pop a bunch of opiates or Xanax or whatever. So they would be literally pilled out of their mind so they could take more pain because it wouldn't hurt. Like you could swing a chair at Balls' head. Sure, it'll hurt. Sure, he'll have a concussion at the end of the night. But it made them go so much harder. Now, I think that's a big reason why people look down on stuff like this. It's because the people who end up doing it, they end up getting fucked up. And you saw Balls Mahoney at the end of his career. He had no teeth
Sad,
left.
the saddest thing I've ever seen.
It was yeah. It was sad. He was addicted to all types of stuff. He was apparently doing better, which nobody believed. And it's crazy. And then Axel, his tag partner, he died like what 6 weeks later. They found him in a McDonald's bathroom with a heroin needle in his arm in his wheelchair, and it's
Oh,
like,
God.
yeah, that's what happens to a lot of these guys. But the thing was that when it comes to head trauma, those two didn't care. Like in FMW, sure, the ring exploded, great. There's worse you can do to your body than a bunch of pyro going off. I mean, a lot of that stuff is gimmicked, and there's a lot worse that you could do to your body than barbed wire. Like there's certain weapons that aren't used as much anymore. Like light tubes used to be all the rage when I was a kid. Those light tube matches were big, and they're
Oh man,
I still love
still
that
have.
shit. I still love it.
The thing is though, like the older guys, the guys who've been through a lot of those, they're like, I'm fucking sick of doing it. Like Nick Gage, like he says at this point he can't stand doing it because it's
He
unpredictable.
said that? Damn.
He said that he'd rather use barbed wire because you know how big the barbs are. There might be a shard of glass, like there's this one match that Nick Gage had in a tournament of death where this huge shard of glass punctured, like I forgot what the vein is called. That's right under your it's like right near your armpit. Sliced his fucking vein. Blood was like like I mean it was like a horror movie. Like blood was gushing. They tape him up. He passed out. He died. Woke back up. Was resuscitated. Started flipping out. They had to restrain him. He threw a woman to the ground. Was like I gotta finish the tournament. I
Oh my
won the
God.
match. Like no, you gotta fucking calm down. They had to sedate him
oh
and
my
rush him to the
god, Jesus.
and he was like, that was a good call on their part because he was high out of his mind as well, and he was ready to die in the ring. He's like, "Fuck it, if I die, I'll be a legend. Fuck it, I don't care."
He died and came back though. Like what the
He did die technically. He did
what
actually
the
die
hell?
to finish
Wow.
the match.
Now
So,
that is hardcore.
with-
Shit.
With XPW, rip off or inspiration to ECW and wait, okay. I mean, I've seen
With
some
the
XPW and it's yeah.
Yeah, I remember I bought it when I was in high school. I remember I bought the whole first season for like $15, which that should be a telling sign. The fact that I could get your first season for $15. But anyway, I remember I bought it and I'm like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. They had some of the worst gimmicks, like unspeakably horrible gimmicks. The guy who ran it even tried to look like Paul Heyman with the heads. I don't know if you remember how Rob Black used to come across, but
Nope.
they would film vignettes in his office where it was supposed to look like Paul Heyman's office. He, like I said, he had the headset and everything. He kind of talked like him, and it's like, ugh. And the
You
main way
can't
that he made
imitate
money,
Paul Heyman, man. You can't.
I mean, even if you are an imitation, I mean, some people get away with it, but if you are an imitation in wrestling, you're probably going to be called out pretty quickly. And
Yeah, it's like hip hop.
Yeah.
exactly. And nobody, including the wrestlers, really respected Rob Black for anything. They saw him as a money mark, a guy just to get a paycheck out of. Like, I mean, when you look at who works there, I'm not even kidding. Aside from maybe the Dudley Boys, Rhino, like guys who were signed up to WWE for a long time, everyone worked there that worked in ECW, and none of them gave a shit either. And as a matter of fact, I think you know of this. When ECW did that, I don't remember if it was Heatwave 2000 or Heatwave 99. They came in and tried to quote unquote invade ECW, and the XPW guys tried to jump the guardrail, and they were, I think, Just Incredible and Dreamer were in the ring. The whole ECW locker room hit. They just started pummeling guys. They just started beating the shit out of people. Like Atlas Security. There's an interview with one of the Atlas Security guys. He said, "Yeah, it was me, Balls, Tracy Smothers, Axel Rotten. We just were in the parking lot throwing these motherfuckers all over the place. Like they got into like a shoot parking lot fight. This was not on television. XPW like wanted to like put ECW out of business. They wanted to be like their rival promotion, and it's like no. And not only that, XPW came around when ECW was on their way out anyway. ECW was not in their prime. Like those were the TNN days, which were fun. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't as good as '96.
I mean, Dusty Rhodes making a cameo was incredible.
Unbelievable. Like one of the best promos ever, being on one of the best promo shows ever. Like some of the best promos in wrestling I've ever seen come from ECW. Like
Well,
Raven, freaking, well, like Stunning Steve, like Austin, like before he
Taz.
became, yes, oh my god,
well, there they gave you creative freedom. Like it's not the way things. It's kind of weird how like we all agree that WWE is far too scripted and it's way too. It's very canned. Like you know what you're gonna get. It's very predictable. They don't really give people a lot of creative leverage unless you're I don't know unless you're friends with certain people, but like for some reason we all agree that that sucks. Yet every company that gets, I mean, I don't know how AEW works right now, but like every company that does get to that mainstream status, they all do that. And it's like, why are we all doing this? Is it to be like, to me though, like what made wrestling a corporate thing was the roots of what got us here, like creativity. You hire a guy because he came up with a good character and he can work a crowd and all that stuff. Why would you then, you know, throw a wig on him and call him something else? It doesn't really make any sense.
I
Yeah.
I think it's because like I think it shows like a fear of risk, like because like there's a risk in just putting someone out there and letting them sink or swim, and sometimes at the first it's like it's kind of weird, but then as weeks go by they start to get better. But if you keep scripting them, they only get to reach a certain level.
Isn't it a bigger risk to have the script that has been proven to fail than to try something new?
Well, yeah.
I think they're just trying to like capture lightning in a bottle again. Like when you know what I mean, try to read like Austin and McMahon was probably like the biggest thing to happen in WWF in the last 20 years, and it's a simple story: a guy beating up his boss, and I think you could see as years go on, they try to recapture that and try to put people in the same position as the other. Like they try to make, for example, Roman Reigns like John Cena, exactly how John Cena was, and it obviously didn't work.
Well, there are good
No.
risk and bad risk, obviously.
Well, yeah, and then TNA tried to recreate literally all of that, including Montreal. I think they did. I think they recreated that twice, and both times it was like. Well, then again, WWE every like 5 years or so, someone tries to redo the Montreal screw job, and it's like, this never. The original one was a shoot. This never worked as a work. I don't know why this happens. Like it's very strange to me. But
Like
anyway,
It
it
can
got
further
Vince
like
in the face, like for Christ's sake. Like why would you try to
it can,
recreate
it can further fuel the conspiracy theories surrounding it, and that's a whole nother show for another time. But yeah, I don't know. Just let things happen naturally. But speaking of like CZW, I think CZW is very important because a lot of the people that came from CZW are are pretty popular, like Adam Cole, Sammy Callahan, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn, and all these guys.
Moxley?
Yeah, John Moxley. I think that it had a lot of influence, and the Cage Death shows. What do you think, Elton?
I think CZW is really important when it comes to bearing that torch after ECW died because you had like I said, you had like smaller companies like the Pro Wrestling Syndicate. I don't know if you remember, they were in Jersey. Like basically everyone ran through there. They had some hardcore stuff, but not a lot. There was ICW, which I feel like gets resurrected and killed again over and over. I think they rebrand. I don't know if they're. I think they might have rebranded themselves as No Holds Barred, which is an awesome name for a company.
Yep.
But if they're gonna now only be the No Holds Barred shows, they're probably technically the most hardcore company in the world because every like I said, I went to the first the only No Holds Barred show, and every match aside from Killer Cross versus Tony Deppen, which was mainly just Killer Cross tossing him all over the place, which was an awesome match. But like I said, there was no ropes, there was chains, there was no. I think the mat was just wood. I don't know if there was even like that thin padding. I might be totally wrong on that. And but anyway, CZW, they carried that torch. I would say between when ECW died and things started to get not so good there. I would say around '09 and like right around when Nick Gage went to prison. The thing was that it just got stale after a while. The stars that they had, they were kind of pissed because like you said like Kevin Steen, for example, when he was there, or Chris Hero when he was there, they weren't main eventing really, except when Steen was wrestling Super Dragon. Those were like main event matches. I believe they main events of the card. I might be totally wrong on that because yeah, you know what? Yeah, don't quote me on that because at the time I don't even know who the CZW champion was. But they had those Cage of Death shows, and like the first two weren't really anything, but I remember, but by like Cage of Death like 5, it was like, oh shit, like it was a big deal that Cage of Death was happening. Then you have Tournament of Death, which they had in the summer. Outside it looks like it was happening in somebody's backyard, and those shows were iconic. Like I said, the match where Nick Gage died, the match where whatchamacallit, Necro Butcher. I don't know if you remember that famous match where Necro Butcher and Zandig, they put the chairs in the ring and sat on them and were just punching the living shit out
Yeah,
of
yeah, that was awesome.
Oh my god, my goodness.
it. Was just it was, yeah, it was, people call it garbage wrestling. I mean, I think that that's like the derogatory term for it, but the thing is that you know what you're getting yourself into with something called Tournament of Death. Then there was King of the Death match in Japan, which I think kind of started most of the stuff that we see nowadays. The one I'm talking about, the famous one with Cactus Jack and Terry Funk in the main event. Like that tournament, I think, inspired CZW maybe even more than it inspired ECW, because ECW, it had a level of violence. Don't get me wrong, like crazy levels of violence sometimes. But CZW was like next level violence. I mean, the shit Nick Monzo was doing, and that's why he had to fucking retire. Nick Monzo's career was what, 3 years? Because he would have been dead if he continued. He took weed whackers to the stomach, was
God.
thrown off buildings. I mean, at some point, it is a little too much. I mean, let's be honest here. But like the
The
fact
weed
that,
whacker stuff is a little crazy, but they still had incredible workers though.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like Zandig was great at as a booker, as a guy to, well, I shouldn't say great. He was better than, I would say, most of the people who were booking that type of wrestling at the time, because he saw a guy like Necro Butcher, and people shat all over Necro Butcher. Oh, he can't. Well, he athletically, he was okay at best as a worker. Now, working a crowd and making a match intense, he was one of the best at it. His punches, I don't know if they really did hurt people very, very badly, but he threw one of the most legitimate looking punches I ever seen in my life.
That match
And
with him
that's,
and Samoa Joe is ridiculous.
which one?
Oh shit! Like, there was more than one. The one I saw was
There's
freaking intense.
there's the one. There was one. For the life of me, I can't find it. It happened in IWA Mid South. Ooh, I might be wrong. I don't know. It happened somewhere. There's one at the ECW arena where CM Punk is on commentary, and the whole time
Oh,
on
that I
commentary,
didn't see. That I
CM
didn't
Punk
see.
is, sayonara, I'm out of here. I'm be working for Vince in a week.
I did not see that. That I did not see.
That's the one that's easier to find. It's him. I think Prazak, Hero, and like a few others on commentary. And according to Joe, he fucking hated working Necro Butcher. Like he couldn't stand working those matches because he wasn't. I guess you can say he was a bad worker, Necro Butcher, because he hurt people a lot. I mean, he didn't destroy anyone's careers like some people do and somehow still work, or concuss people on a regular basis like people like fucking Sheamus do, which God knows how the fuck he still has a job this long. But
I mean, look at him.
but that's not a topic for right now. But I'm just saying that um Necro, I guess, would hurt people, and for whatever reason, Joe was like, "Oh, you want to know what? I'm gonna go hard on this motherfucker." They were fucking beating the shit out of each other, and that's a great example of a match. Did you both see either one of the Necro Butcher Samoa Joe matches, or no?
No, I
I saw
haven't.
one of them, not the one where CM Punk was on commentary.
I think you. I mean, did you see it on YouTube?
Yes, like he had like Punk. I mean, Joe had like red shorts, didn't he? In that one.
He always had the red shorts.
Hmm.
I mean, was it in a dark building?
It wasn't as dark. There were like more lights than like usual.
Hmm. It's because the one that's the easiest to find is the one with Punk on commentary. But I'm saying, like, I think it's on YouTube. That's a perfect example of a match that match is hardcore as fuck. They used, there was like a few chair shots and that was it. But like that was a brawl. They fought all over the crowd. There's a spot I think it was in that match where Necro's hands is on. Oh, I cringe just thinking about it. Necro's hands was on the ring post on the outside. Joe takes a fucking chair and just smashes the shit out of his hand, and it's like, oh my fucking god. I mean, on a logical sense, if you want to put, once again, people hate using wrestling psychology and pro wrestling in the same sentence, but like,
Wait,
I
like so
think
the match that the commentary happened was in IWA Mid South. I think that was the one I saw. That was the one
yeah,
I saw. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
both of them happened in Mid South, but then there was another one that happened in the literal Mid South, like because the one that happened in IWA Mid South was at the ECW arena, the one on YouTube. The other one was in the literal South, and it was like in a very brightly lit building, and I thought that one was way more brutal because I felt like Joe was just fucking sick of working this guy. Like he beat the crap out of him, and but I don't know. To me, that's a perfect example of that era of hardcore wrestling. While it wasn't in CZW, that's a perfect example of an era where these are two guys, and Joe is not a hardcore wrestler at all. I would never consider him. But when he has to do the brawl, like the brawling style, he can absolutely switch it up and make it look legitimate and make it look like he's gonna fucking kill you. And I think he won that one by knockout. I might be wrong, but I think he beat Necro by knockout. And I don't know though. Anyway, even though that wasn't CZW, I would say that era of those guys who were on that CZW roster, they carried that torch. The guys, like I said, like Nick Gage, Jun Kasai, um, they were so important because if it wasn't for them, the only hardcore companies that would have been around were I mean, there probably was a few others sprinkled into the United States, but the main one would be XPW and IWA Mid South, and both of them I think did hardcore wrestling like absolute shit. But
Like I have to ask, like, would you consider Bloodsport like on level of hardcore?
it's hardcore in nature, but there's no weapons in that stuff. That's hybrid MMA wrestling. Like it's a work, but it's supposed to look like a shoot. It's not really it's not really hardcore per se. I mean, just for the simple fact that there aren't weapons on those shows really, unless I'm forgetting a match or two. But like you have matches on those shows where people are stiffing the hell out of each other. There's people who are, throwing each other onto the cement. And like in nature, like I said, if we want to call that, I mean, it's called strong style, which is strong style is a fucking work. But like, if you want to call it strong style, I guess, yeah, these guys are really hitting each other. That's why you can't really do a blood sport show too often. Like GCW doesn't really do those so often, and when they do, though, they make it a spectacle. Like this year, I think the main event was going to be Moxley and Josh Barnett. I might be wrong. I know
Yeah.
Moxley was the
It was
main
supposed to be
event.
like that last year as well, but I think Moxley was injured. He had like the staph infection.
I don't maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
don't
not.
quote me on that. But
It's because I think Moxley was still in WWE at the time, I might be wrong, but
oh
yeah,
no,
I don't
after he
think.
left, he wanted to fight Josh Barnett. After he left, I remember him talking about how he wanted to do Bloodsport, but it was in an interview. He wanted to do Bloodsport, but he had the staph infection, I believe, so he couldn't do it.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure about the second the Bloodsport show, but I know that he was supposed to be on this year's. And it's a shame because this year's Bloodsport had some really interesting matches on the card, and it's like,
I was really looking forward to it.
yeah, like I don't know if I would really consider that a hardcore wrestling, just for the simple fact that there's literally almost no weapons on those shows. If not none, I don't think there's weapons on those shows. But like I said, don't quote me on that.
So I
But
want to talk about the adaptation with the hardcore style into mainstream wrestling, and I think it's very interesting to note that FMW had a relationship with WWF, and ECW had a
yeah,
working relationship with them with WWF and FMW, and then we have the Attitude Era comes out of this. So this is interesting because do you think it's like Vince is obviously inspired by it, but like, is it a ripoff or is it just just inspiration or what?
It was toned. I wouldn't call it straight up ripoff because when you look at when they were, because at one point I would even argue at one point fucking Raw was borderline hardcore wrestling. Every match had a chair shot. Every match had wacky gimmicks where people were fighting backstage.
I mean, the match
Nearly
with The Rock and McFoley, with like him handcuffing McFoley and beating him to death with the freaking chair. That was one of the most
yeah,
hardcore matches in WWE I've ever saw.
yeah.
Undertaker power driving Triple H on the escalator
Oh
in
my
Penn
god,
Station.
that I didn't see. Holy
I,
crap!
I can't believe. I mean, and it's funny because I remember when I saw that match. I was like, how the hell didn't Triple H's hair get caught in the escalator? Because like
I
you see
think
him
about that every day. I have like nightmares about it.
and I watched this fucking WWE documentary like 5 or 6 years ago, and finally someone pointed it out. CM Punk, he was like, I remember watching that at home and looking at Triple H's long hair and thinking, "Get the fuck off that escalator! You're about to get all your hair ripped out." And somehow it didn't happen. I don't know. Triple H, I don't
He
know.
better talk about it on his on the celebration they're having for him on SmackDown on Friday.
Repeat that.
They're having a Triple H 25th anniversary special. They're gonna celebrate Triple H on SmackDown. So I hope they talk
I thought,
about what. What'd you think?
huh?
Think what?
Oh no! I thought they celebrate Triple H every night on SmackDown.
No, I
You
wish.
can
I
argue that
wish.
shit.
I
You could.
wish. I hope they talk about that that Shotgun Saturday Night match from '97. Yeah, I think the Attitude Era when you like it was a it was a moment, big moment for WWF. But I think it just comes down to like the stories that they had, like Austin McMahon. I don't think it had any. It did have something to do with like Sable and but all the other wacky shit that happened in the Attitude Era. Honestly, it was kind of ridiculous. I think the core of it was just again just Austin McMahon, just great stories. That's all it was. It wasn't the blood and guts that from ECW at all. I think it was kind of just a gentrified version of that kind of stuff, or what they think that style is.
Well, yeah. I mean, I know that like as much as I think he's a fucking stooge, I know that Bruce Pritchard was fond somewhat of ECW. I assume. I mean, I never heard Vince Russo say outwardly that he watched it, but like, they had their eyes on a lot, especially Van Dam. I mean, Van Dam was on Raw quite a few times in '97, but when it comes to like the influence with ECW and even even FMW, because there is a few Raws with Hayabusa or Jinsei Shinzaki, and apparently,
Aja Kong too.
yeah, Kong, yeah, Aja Kong as well. She was more of a freelancer, like she worked everywhere, but well, then again, so did Shinzaki until they. Well, actually, they hired Shinzaki for a year. He was what was his name? Hakushi, and he had terrible job matches.
Oh
But
God.
anyway, he I think Vince. I mean, I definitely think that ECW and FMW were an influence. But what I was about to say was that they were going to do a joint show at the Garden. A lot of people don't know about. A few people have talked about this. I think Pritchard actually has talked about this as well. They were going to have kind of like the Ring of Honor New Japan show. They were going to have an FMW WWF house show because FMW, their tapes in America were selling like crazy. Like I remember Blockbuster even having a few FMW tapes. Like these guys, they weren't mainstream famous, but they had quite, a rep. And like while ECW was still not so famous, they still had a reputation in the Northeast. So what the plan was going to be was they were going to have an exploding barbed wire match with Onita and Austin.
Oh
And
man, that would have been so
yeah,
cool.
the thing is, it would have been cool, but it's like with the amount of risk and the amount of punishment, is the payoff for a Madison Square Garden house show at a random time, at a random year, really worth putting your top guy at a high risk when it comes to having a big injury? Because if you're going to shoot an angle like that, you have to do it on a pay-per-view where you're going to make a little bit more money than whatever the gate would have been at the Madison Square Garden house show, which is why it never happened. But there was talks about them bringing in the barbed wire matches, but then they ended up bringing in the fucking Inferno match, which to me is way more dangerous than a barbed wire.
It's fire, like
Yeah, you can get cut from barbed wire, which is also dangerous, but you can be burned. Being burned is way worse.
Like if Austin were to stun somebody and they were to fly into the exploding barbed wire, it's like one and done. It's not like fire. Where like,
well, also when you think about the Inferno match, like God forbid, all right, like let's just say because every single time that, or I don't know if it's every time someone got stunned, but anytime a big move happened, the flames would like rise. What if a piece of the set caught on fire, a fucking light thing fell on the front row and like 10 people died? That's because you were playing with fire, literally. Barbed wire, it's like a contained type of stupid. Like no one's gonna get hurt.
The only people that gotta get hurt are the people in the ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one else is gonna get hurt other than them. Fire is way more unpredictable. And I think that match might have even happened before. No, I think it happened before the. Like ECW had fire, they had a few fire spots. Like I think in '94, '95, with like the Terry Funk incident. I don't know if I don't know if it was Terry Funk and Cactus or just Cactus, but where they had the chair that was on fire because they did that spot in Japan successfully. They had a chair that was on fire. The tape, because first of all, why the fuck would you tape something to a chair that you're about to light on fire? So of course the tape melts. The chair goes flying into the crowd, and then they nearly burn the whole ECW arena down. So they didn't have fire again at all, I don't think, until I would say the Balls Mahoney spot on TNN when the Dudleys threw him through the flaming table. Because the flaming table spot's a lot easier because according to people who have taken it, they're like, it's a great spot because, well, it's not a great spot, but aesthetically it looks awesome, and you can get burned. But by the time the body, like anytime you see any of those flaming table matches, by the time your body hits the flaming table, your body puts the fire out, and the flames are nearly done by the time your body even hits it. So it's like those spots I think are a lot easier to do. But yeah, I don't know. I think dumber things were done by the WWF at that time. Even dumber, I would say, sometimes than ECW, because ECW would have these like not every match is a hardcore match. Like a lot of people say that just simply never watch.
a very common misconception with ECW. Very common.
Even on the Bloodsport DVD that they put out, they had Taz and Bam Bam Bigelow. They had Rey Mysterio versus Psychosis, Jericho, Too Cold Scorpio. They didn't have just all cheese graters and fucking barbed wire bats and stuff like that.
No, it wasn't. No, it just wasn't really the barbed wire bat stuff wasn't really that often. I would say that happened more often in WWF between 98 and 2001. Or I don't know about 01, but 98 and 2000 than it even happens in ECW because the barbed wire stuff would come out only for certain guys. Like for example, Funk would use it. Sabu would. Well, they had the infamous barbed wire match where they both nearly fucking killed each other. But yeah, like I would say that the WWF took sometimes dumber risks because you can watch one of those Raws from '99. I would say that you could, like, if you took a drinking game where you had to take a shot for every time someone got smashed in the face with a chair hard way, you'd probably be fucking get alcohol poisoning by the end of the episode. It happened every single night, over and over and over again, sometimes more than ECW.
I can't even count the amount of concussions.
Like ECW did the chairs to the head more, I would say, when WWF started doing it more. Like I was watching a random ECW episode and fucking Van Damme's on the floor and Tracy Smothers comes out of nowhere with he caves his fucking head. No, I mean, like, and Van Damme's sitting on the ground collecting himself. I don't even know if Van Damme was expecting to get hit with the chair. Tracy Smothers just caves his fucking head in, and I guess Tracy realized what he did. He just throws the chair down and he starts posing. In his head, he's probably like, "Oh fuck, I might have just, I might have fucking concussed." Like, oh my god, like that's bad. That's bad stuff. But Attitude Era, I think they took so many stupid risks, and they made hardcore wrestling also with that hardcore title. Don't get me wrong; like a lot of that stuff was fun, but a lot of it just became stupid comedy matches where people were coming out, fucking the weird Pat Patterson versus Gerald Briscoe when they were in. Was it explained why they were in drag or no?
I don't remember. I don't remember why.
They had a dress match where they were whacking each other with brooms.
That sounds like a weird dream. Good lord.
It's like stuff like this is what makes other companies look bad, and it's not even the other companies that are doing it. But yeah, I don't know. I think things did get taken too far sometimes in WWF, and it's crazy because like they never really. I mean, they really did learn, but when they have these retrospectives on their network and stuff, they never really admit to how fucking dangerous a lot of that stuff was, especially those wacky hardcore matches that they would have at the beginning of the hardcore title. Because I don't know if you've ever seen those, but it was just people exchanging chair shots. Like there was no, it was like a normal match with a bunch of chair
Yep.
shots.
Garbage cans and wrestling in ponds in the middle of winter and stuff like that. It was very over the top.
Wrestling in a pond in the winter. That's more. You could get hypothermia and die. I saw that match. Like I would have totally fucking said no.
Wait, who wrestled in a pond? Who is it?
It was Hardcore Holly. It was the Job Squad, and it was Hardcore Holly. I remember it was Al Snow and Hardcore Holly, but I think there was other people in it.
And no one got
was,
sick from that?
Oh, I'm sure everyone got sick.
Oh my god!
I'm sure. Like I remember when Cena threw Edge into
That was classic.
Edge ended up getting like pneumonia, and he
Oh
couldn't
my
wrestle for
God.
like 3 weeks or something. And it's like,
What about when The Rock threw Austin off a bridge?
oh, that was a work.
Funny ass word.
Take this the hell with you.
No,
It's
yeah,
good
no
stuff.
one actually gets except Onita. He really jumped off a bridge. no one gets thrown off a bridge and lives.
Oh
So
my god!
I want to talk about the a lot of the modern death matches in New Japan, Impact, WWE, and AEW, and some of these matches are main events on pay-per-views. So, do you think in the long run that you can do like a death match kind of hardcore match and be a main event of a pay-per-view and be successful? Or can that style go too far in that setting? If that makes sense.
It depends on the audience. Like I think because Moxley and what was the AEW match where
It was
when they
Moxley
did
and Omega.
yeah,
Yep.
like tons of people were pissed. So it's like
I don't understand why,
Like
but
I have to
fine.
ask,
Your opinion.
like when I hear people talk about that match, I either hear, "Oh, it was really fun," or it was unnecessary. Like, do you think a hardcore match should be judged more so on fun or just like like what is necessary?
well, what's the line of necessary
That's
in
the
that
thing. Like
That's
that's
a
what
good
I don't
question.
get. That's what I don't get when people say that. It's like, "Oh, it wasn't necessary," but it's a hardcore match. Like literally, there was a second where Omega threw a barbed wire bat to Moxley and said, "Yeah, I want to challenge you." Like, what did you like? And people were surprised that like they did hardcore shit. Like, I don't get that.
that match wasn't even. I mean, it was a great. I love the match, but I'm
I
saying
loved it too.
the things they were doing to each other weren't. Yeah, they cut. Yeah, they cut. They got a lot of color. I remember
Yeah, it wasn't that
they
ridiculous.
they did the. I mean, nowadays, I mean, in ECW was different. That's the thing. Like when New Jack would do like all his weapons except for his guitars. They're all everything was everything was. I'm sorry, the guitar was gimmicked to explode, just like Jeff Jarrett's were. um all his weapons were actual blunt objects. Like when he pulled out a 2x4, that was a 2x4 you buy at Home Depot. The
Oh
thing
my.
was, he wouldn't swing it like murder. He knew how to do it and not kill you. Like it's funny because like New Jack, especially with the recent documentary, like now he has this reputation. He hurts everyone. Everyone he hurt, you know about because he hurt them badly. He either cut them up, concussed them horribly on purpose, tried to kill them, stabbed them, etc. Most New Jack matches, if you watch his matches, he knew how to do everything and he knew how to protect it because at the end of the day, it's a business. We're all just trying to get paid here, and he doesn't want to go to jail. So back then, like when there was the barbed wire baseball bats and stuff, that was actual barbed wire. Nowadays, they do get gimmick barbed wire, but they take like 3 strands of real barbed wire, so you'll actually get cut up when you get hit with whatever it is. That match, you can tell that when they were hitting each other with whatever was the barbed wire bat. There's something with barbed
Yeah.
wire.
It was a
Yep.
barbed wire bat, and it was a big bed of barbed wire.
Well, that
Yeah.
was fake as shit. The bed of barbed wire, like that's come on. If someone went through that, oh my fucking god, you're gonna. And I've seen people actually go through that in CZW, and it was a disaster. Like that will mess you up. Like that can. There's so many
And cut
things.
veins, like
Well, yeah, I mean, they cut. Yeah, exactly. It could get really bad, but it's like when Omega and Moxley were using when they were using their barbed wire bat, like you can kind of tell when they're getting
the
hit
barbed
with it.
wire broom. That was another thing.
Yeah, yeah, like but like it was gimmick barbed wire is my point. And
Yeah.
or like I don't know if you remember the Orton Cactus
Oh,
Jack match.
yeah, that was amazing.
Oh.
But if you watch that back, the barbed wire board that they used, I think it was a board. I don't know if it was a table, but there was like an insane amount of barbed wire. Like it looks ridiculous. That was clearly some fake barbed wire because if there was that much barbed wire penetrating your skin, it's gonna stab you deep, and it's not gonna be a good time. It will literally cut you the fuck up. So I think that we know now from past mistakes what to do, what not to do, and I think that like I said, it depends on the audience and their understanding of hardcore wrestling because sadly, like the Benoit thing, that puts such a bad name, not on just wrestling, but it made hardcore wrestling look so much worse, even though this motherfucker didn't even do hardcore wrestling.
Exactly.
Yeah, like,
Wait. People blame like hardcore wrestling on Benoit.
no. Like, there was a very, very bad stigma with pro wrestling in general after Benoit died. Everyone was just like, it's a barbaric sport. It's unnecessary. The amount of pain these people go through, and then like lots of news reports are talking about chair shots to the head and concussions and stuff, and it's like this guy didn't even why now is hardcore wrestling. I mean, I guess I do understand because I mean wrestling looks bad in the public eye anyway, but now if you look at this other style of wrestling where they're hacking and slashing each other, yeah, it's going to look bad, especially in comparison to the tame stuff that guys like Benoit were doing, because now that's considered barbaric. So imagine somebody turns on Raw or whatever, and they see somebody get a German suplex, and they're like, oh my God, why would you do that to your body? Then they change to the next channel, and someone gets a German suplex off the top of a ladder through 10 flaming tables onto the concrete. They're going to think that's what kills people.
Yeah.
And yeah, hardcore wrestling, I think, suffered more than any other style of wrestling after the Benoit thing. And it sucks because that style of wrestling had nothing to do with his career.
Yeah, I don't get that at all. I don't understand that at all. Like Benoit, like, you're right. Benoit never did any of that shit. Like I hardly remember him doing that shit.
So I think that I mean I guess the next thing I'm wondering is last year they did Pentagon and Sami Callihan. It was a death match on pay-per-view Impact. And, they did Kenny Omega Moxley main event. It was a big schmaz. And, years ago, people still talk about Edge versus McFoley WrestleMania 22. It wasn't the main event, but it was, no one really remembers the main event. They talk about that match. So do you think now the Monday night, the Wednesday night, the Friday night, or the Tuesday night audience would be, would they adapt, or would they take in, or would they want to see a well-built hardcore style of match?
Yeah, but the core, we're down to a core audience at this point. Like
That's
we
also
are
true.
down,
Yeah.
yeah, we are down to the bare bones. You can, we're having shows right now, sadly, with nobody in the arena. People are, for some reason, they're still watching. I'm not. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not watching, and I was following. I mean, I watched most of the AEW shows, but then when they started to do this empty arena stuff, I'm like, you want to know what? It's awkward. I'm not so invested in this anyway. Like I wasn't that into what was going on, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I'll check back in when the crowds come back. But we are down to a core audience, so I think you can do any type of match. You can have a shit match, literally, where you just smear poop on each other. They're gonna watch it. This is the core audience at this point. You are not going to run these people off. This is what they do. This is what they watch, and that's cool. The only thing that hardcore wrestling will do, at worst, it will draw a new audience that used to watch wrestling because there's literally tens of millions of people who used to watch wrestling. We're down to about how many? Like 4 million collectively?
Seems about
3?
right. We got 2 million on SmackDown recently, like 1 point close to 2 million for Raw, and another million on Wednesday night. Yeah, so I mean we're on 4 million.
We're it's but I'm saying the numbers. I mean, when you look at the 90s, not only did you have on Monday nights, you had almost a share of what 18 million people, and that's just on one night. That's just one fucking night. Then you had the Thunder ratings. People don't realize Thunder did very, very, very well, especially when it began, and it ran against fucking Seinfeld. It was a rating success. ECW, it was somewhat of a rating success. The only problem was that it didn't really get a lot of promo. They like TNN didn't really help them get their name out there. Like they aired the show, they didn't really do a lot of commercials. Like if anything, the video game helped them a lot. I think it could come back, but the problem is that I don't think anyone has the guts to really give it a shot again because if someone gets hurt, it's going to look real bad on you. Now the thing about that though is that I'll see fucking Ricochet or someone. They do a quadruple moonsault outside there. That's 10 times more dangerous than getting whacked over the head with a stick.
Like if you
Because
land that wrong, it's over. Like
well,
I no, like I remember him. I remember one NXT match where he did like the freaking that quadruple flip senton, and he landed on nobody. I was shook for a second because like that can kill
He
you.
landed on nobody.
Like literally, like we saw it live at Takeover New York. Like it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like that's way more dangerous than like I don't know, like fake barbed wire to me at least.
well, do you remember? This is another botch. I mean, I hate to say it. It looked hilarious, but he could have died. Do you remember when Jeff Hardy slipped and he fell out of the ring head first on the stairs?
Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
Was that
like,
Impact? That was Impact.
yeah, it was impacted at the
Yeah.
Oh.
Center, and it was like the most horrifying. No, it looks like he snapped his neck and died. Like it looks like Jeff Hardy was not coming back. Like Jeff Hardy has left the building. No more Jeff Hardy. Like that's honestly
Oh wait, when he fell off the cage?
maybe it was a case. I don't know
No, he
what it
fell
was.
off of the cage and he landed really
Yeah.
badly. I
I
think
think
that's
it's
what you're
yeah,
talking about. Oh my
yeah.
god.
I thought it was the top right. Yeah. All right. I was off a cage. Holy.
Yeah, he fell off of the cage and like he landed so horribly and like he was out for like a minute and like Matt was his brother was freaking out. It was bad. Like that was really bad. But
That's
maybe it was another thing where he fell off the stage. I don't remember that.
well. I'm saying like something as simple. Well, it's not simple. Jumping off a cage is not simple, but it's something that is still done all of the goddamn time. Leaping off a goddamn cage. I think that that's a lot more dangerous than a match where there's a few whacks to the head with a weapon, some simple brawling. Like you can watch or like I'll give you another good example. Um, I went to a GCW show about a year ago, and I saw a match between a guy named G Raver, who his career is I think his career is over. He fucked him up. He fucked himself up so badly in Japan. But it was him and Schlack. Now, if I showed this to a traditionalist wrestling fan, they would be like, "This is the stupidest, most garbage, just dumb." They would just say it's just fucking dumb because of the amount of brutality. There was barbed wire everywhere. There was I, I don't think there was too many chair shots, but there was lots of barbed wire. For some reason, GCW they don't use tables; they use doors. A lot of people,
MLW did the same thing.
I think it's because it's like I think a gimmick door I think is probably cheaper than a gimmick table. And anyway, um, yeah, like if I showed a traditionalist that match, they'd be like, "This is fucking stupid." But later on that card, there was another great hardcore match where it began as just a tough guy match. It was do you know Chris Dickinson?
No.
He's this indie wrestler in Brooklyn. He's fucking awesome. I've seen him in many indies.
Oh wait. I think he was on Observer Live this week. Yeah, I think it was him.
Chris
Yeah, the
Dickinson.
I don't know. Yeah.
Dirty Daddy, Chris Dickinson, and he wrestled a veteran. Do you know Dan Moff?
Yeah, I know the name.
Yeah, he's like a Ring of Honor original. Like he's been doing this for like fucking like 20 something years. But anyway, these two and Moff was just kind of coming back into the limelight at this time. I think he's back in Ring of Honor now because he was tearing it up on the indies. These two had what started as just a stiff, I mean, like stiff elbows to the face, stiff shots, slam each. It was like an all Japan 96 match. These two, it was really good. It was really good wrestling. Then at some point, Moff just, he
Oh, I'm sorry.
fucking snapped. Wait, repeat that?
Sorry about that. Keep going.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. I was just gonna say, in the middle of the match, Moff just started going really fucking stiff on Dickinson, and I watched Dickinson tell me and a bunch of other fans this after the show. He was like, he's like, "Oh shit!" When Moff hit me so hard, he was like, "I didn't know we were going there." Like, "Oh shit! All right, let's do this then." So they started just, like I said, throwing shots at each other. Then came the doors. Power bombing each other, suplex, chair shots to unprotected chair shots to the head. What started as like a traditional power, big guy versus big guy match, with two guys, or not big guy versus big guy in the sense of watching fucking Big Show versus Kane or something. I mean like two guys who can really have chemistry together, and these two. It started as a normal match, and then they slowly built into this insane level of violence where it was like a tough guy fight. Like how much whatever punishment you give me, I could dish it back 10 times worse. And like I said, eventually the doors came in, the chairs came in, the whatever came in, and I can show that to a person who's into super traditional wrestling, and I think that they can at least see where logically the weapons came in because these two motherfuckers just wanted to outdo each other. And I don't know, something like that match, if you put that match in the middle of, I don't know about AEW because their fans seem to get fucking offended at barbed wire, so I don't know what to tell you about them. But
Yeah, you can't please them.
I don't think it's AEW fans. I think it's just people just on the internet observing AEW from wherever.
They're looking for any reason to scrutinize AEW. You can't please those people.
I just think that if you put that match like in a ring on any show like WWE, whatever, any show on television, that shit would get over. It absolutely would get over because you can suck people into it if you have two guys or girls or whatever who know what they're doing. And I don't know. I do think it could go mainstream. It's just that someone has to have the courage to pull the trigger. That's the problem to me.
Also, if like the story's right, like if there's enough of I guess it depends. I guess like if there's enough of a blood feud between two people, like that kind of brutality, makes sense.
It makes sense, but this was a match with no story going in. They kind of told the story in the ring. But like I said though, like you're dealing with two guys who are super good at what they do. These two can go in there, suck a crowd into a match with no story, no build up whatsoever. They just said Dan Moff versus Chris Dickinson. Let's see what the fuck happens. And these two ended up sucking the whole crowd in. Everybody, my girlfriend who doesn't really watch wrestling pretty much at all, she was blown away. But everybody was just blown away because not only did it have that level of wow, these two guys are really fucking good workers. Then they start doing I guess like the props, the weapons, and it's like damn, like that's how you fucking do it. And they made it look like a war, and that is a perfect example of two guys who really, really know how to work multiple different styles and draw any crowd in as long as you're a wrestling fan. So I guess it kind of just all depends on like your of how much violence you're really into or can take.
Like it's
Which
a
is why
whole
it's
other kind of talent to kind of like just pull people in, like people who've never watched and like make them interested. Like I don't know, like one example, I guess, even though it's not really a hardcore match, it wasn't a hardcore match. Like Pete Dunne and Walter take over New York. Like that, we Peter and I were there live. We were sitting next to people who were just at their first wrestling show, and at first they're like, "Wait, what's going on?" And then as the match progressed, they were sucked in. Like that's a whole other kind of talent.
Walter's one of the best. He's one of the best right now, definitely. He has an aura and a look and just everything about him.
That nobody has.
Yeah,
No,
Yeah.
he's one right now. He's a one of a kind type of guy, and that's a guy. I don't know. I would invest big money in him. Problem is, he apparently. Wait, now. Correct me if I'm wrong. He doesn't live. He doesn't do NXT. Am I wrong?
He does do NXT.
NXT
He
UK.
mostly does,
I guess
yeah, but
it's still
he's been doing a lot of like NXT proper stuff recently. Like he's got a program with Finn Balor that's kind of brewing. But
Uh,
he doesn't really come to America. From what I understand, I don't know if it's true now. He doesn't. I think he still lives in Germany. So I don't know because if I was a promoter, if I was Vince or Hunter or whatever, man, I would put money into Walter. I would have had Walter show up at WrestleMania to beat Goldberg. I don't
that
know,
would have
but
been
I'm not.
crazy.
Yeah,
That would have been hilarious, but that would have been crazy.
yeah, but the travel situation. So yeah,
no, well, yeah, well, exactly. I mean, what I always heard. This is before he even got signed to Vince. What I always heard was the reason why he didn't get hired quicker than because Ring of Honor really wanted him. I fucking swear to God, if Ring of Honor scooped him, PCO, and a few others up, Darby Allin, because Darby's like super young. He reminds me a lot. I mean, some of the shit he does is kind of corny, but like he's like a white boy Sabu, where he's just a daredevil and he doesn't mind hurting himself.
That's a great way to
To
describe it. Like he wrestles like a crazy skateboarder.
and he's one of the most popular
he
guys in AEW. So
Yeah, and people love that. Like one of the best gimmicks ever, in my opinion, is Sabu because
oh
that
man,
just screams pro wrestling. Everything about it. Because who wouldn't want him on their card?
Like Sabo is so good that no one can even botch like him. Even his botches are legendary.
Well, that was like him being so sloppy was a part of his appeal because
Yeah,
like
I love that.
you didn't know if he was gonna fuck up and hurt himself all in order. It's kind of weird. People say this is mental gymnastics, but hear me out. I might just be defending a botch monkey, but hear me out. One of the things about him fucking up and all that stuff and slipping on the ropes and all that is the fact that it's like, goddamn, this is a guy who really wants to hurt his opponent. He wants to hurt his opponent so badly, he's beating himself up in the process and fucking up his own moves. Now, to me, that added the element, like when you see Sabu in a match and he's going to the top of the ladder, in my head, I'm like, oh fuck no, he's about to fall and die, and he's not even going to hit his opponent. This is going to be a disaster. And when he does hit the opponent, it makes it even better. And when he falls, crashes, falls on his head, and looks like a dunce. I think that there's some appeal to that as well. The thing is, though, is that some of those botches ends up either really hurting him. I mean, I'll say this: I've never seen someone botch so often and hurt themselves so little.
I guess it goes.
Like
I get it's like an element of unpredictability. It goes back to like taking good or bad risk, and it paying off a lot of the time.
if if they weren't so quick to throw Cena back into the program with Edge in summer 2006, they had like it's because Sabu had that little program with John Cena. They
That
could have
was great.
milked that. Yeah, they could have milked that for the whole summer. But the problem was that Sabu had a lot of heat because do you remember the table incident where they had to stop filming the Marine?
No,
Oh
what
my god!
happened?
Oh no!
So all right, so
Is that when they put him through the table on Raw or something like that?
yeah, like
Oh, okay.
Oh,
before
that
the
was
show,
wrong.
and Casino like was a big ECW mark, and he was like, well, Sabu was like, all right, what I'm gonna do the triple jump leg drop. I'm gonna put you through the table. And he showed him how to take it face down. He's like, no, I've gone through tables before face first. I know what to do. He's like, no, listen, I'm gonna do it differently. You never took the Arabian, the Arabian face bust. Like you never took that move. You need to put your head down a certain way. And Cena's like, no, I know what I'm doing. He's like, all right, man. Cena takes it the way he wanted to, and then he got the biggest shiner. His whole he had an enormous black eye. Apparently, the next day, like it was like the size of like a fucking baseball.
Okay, that
He
explains a
fucking
lot. That explains a lot because I remember having a horrible black eye.
and they had to stop shooting the Marine for like a week or something. And it's like, oh my god! Like, and then Sabu had an enormous amount of heat, and then Sabu quit. Like what? Like he got in trouble with Stephanie the night of December to Dismember because he didn't want to cut a promo. Stephanie's like, no, everyone has to cut a promo. He's like, have
Well,
you
why
ever
would you make
seen?
him cut a promo?
He never cuts promo. The whole thing, I don't know if you guys remember this, but his whole thing was that he didn't speak.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember. Exactly. That's why I asked that.
He had a shoot interview, and as much as I fucking hate Rob Feinstein, Feinstein did something brilliant where the gimmick of the shoot interview was it was a hidden camera interview, and the camera was like in a bag almost, and it was like in an awkward position to make it look like it was an actual hidden camera footage type of thing. So, and Sabu multiple times in the interview, he's like, "That camera isn't on, right?" And Feinstein's like, "No, it's not on. It's just a big work. It was just for him to like finally have a real interview." And then he did the whatchamacallit, what's that documentary called? Forever Hardcore. And they even promoted it, I think, on the back of the DVD. It's like, for the first time, Sabu speaks. And it's like, oh, shit. And that was a big selling point for that documentary, was that you actually heard Sabu talk, and because he had such a mystique behind him. But, like, a gimmick like Sabu, I totally think that could work today. I think
Yeah.
Darby
Oh,
Allin,
absolutely.
Darby
Excellent.
Allin, his gimmick isn't, it's nothing like Sabu, but he has that whole, I'm gonna hurt myself in order to hurt my opponent, and he does
Not
these really risky things people crucify him for. But it's like, he could be doing worse to himself.
I mean, like one of the best Darby Allin vignettes I've ever seen so far is like I think it was a week after like Sammy Guevara smashed his skateboard into his throat. So like during the vignette, he tries to speak but he coughs. And he takes out a flamethrower and he lights a cutout of Sammy Guevara and Jericho on fire. It's like one of the best AEW vignettes I've ever seen.
It was awesome.
Well,
It was so great.
I did see him do something that was pretty. All right, this is an example of stupidity in my opinion. In Evolve, which Evolve was so fucking that's one thing, man. If there's one thing I hate Triple H for in the past 5 years, it's what has happened to Evolve. I mean, I guess sure he gave Gabe a job, which I found out Gabe was paying these guys like nothing. The fact that Gabe Sapolsky was paying some guys really, really well, like Matt Riddle and Walter and stuff, but guys like Darby Allin were getting like $400. It's like, are you fucking like you're working these shows for that little money? I would have demanded more money, but the thing is, it's like Evolve was probably the biggest indie. It was and yeah, it was probably the biggest indie in the Northeast, though, at least off the top of my head. But he did this spot with a guy. I don't know if you know him. All Ego Ethan Page. They had this
Yeah, I
awesome.
know Ethan Page. Yeah.
Him and Darby Allin had this awesome feud, and it ended in a loser. It was like a was it a loser leaves town? I don't remember, but it was a hardcore match. Darby Allin had this idea where he took and I think Ethan Page didn't want to do it. Don't quote me on that, but he's like, all right, throw me in a body bag, fill it with thumbtacks, and start throwing me all over the ring. And it's like, what the is wrong with you? And they did it. And he was so getting, and then he crawled out of the body bag with thumbtacks in him. No, but I mean in his wrist, in his hands, on his, like he could have so got one in the eye or in the
Oh my
neck. And it's
god.
this guy's fucking crazy. No, but I don't know. That's one of those things. Like you just have to applaud someone having balls and risking their lives for their craft. But the thing is that like you did it in front of a crowd of fucking what 400, 300 people. That's something that should be happening on AEW TV because at least it'll be seen by a million people. But like,
That did happen in AEW, but without the thumbtacks.
Yeah.
He was in a body bag.
oh,
Yeah.
it's not as fun with it. It's not as fun without the thumbtacks though. The thumbtacks added that element of what the fuck is going to happen, but still getting thrown in a body bag and being thrown around the ring is still pretty scary.
Yep. So what are some like I guess wrapping things up here? What are some like misconceptions that people don't really understand about all of the hardcore promotions we talked about, FMW, even ECW, CZW, even now GCW? What are some things that people just don't understand about it?
They well, like I said, they call it garbage wrestling. They think that these guys can't work, they can't wrestle, they can't that they rely on props in order to get themselves over. I mean, it's not like some of the most famous wrestlers ever did that. It's not like Jake the Snake wasn't over, but anyway, they think that they rely on props and things that aren't traditional, quote unquote traditional. Meanwhile, how long has this shit been around at this point? It's funny because now, okay, in 2020, what would be considered traditional classic wrestling would be a match like Austin and Brett. That was a brawl where there was
Yeah.
blood everywhere at the end. 20 years prior to that, what well not 20 years, but prior to that, traditional was the Dusty Rhodes and Tully Blanchard. They had gruesome cage matches. Traditional before that, we're going back to what was traditional in the 80s was Bruno and Koloff and stuff like that. They had matches that were bloody. They were brawls. Like I said, there was the Brass Knuckles Championship back in the fucking 60s. So I think that this stuff has been around for a long time.
Brass
But
Knuckles Championship?
yeah, I think that was introduced in the late 50s. I might be wrong on that. It might have been the 60s, but that was a thing. Basically, to win that, yeah, you needed to have a brutal. It was like that was like the brawler title, pretty much. But like, I think what we're learning, however, a lot of people are turning a blind eye to it. What we're learning now is that these guys are very talented because, like, Nick Gage, he's like one of the top indie guys. Most of his matches now aren't weapons matches. The guy's as good as he's ever been. Guys like I said, Schlack, he who's very controversial right now, but a guy like him, he doesn't need weapons to have great matches. Some guys do, and like I said, you call those guys the hack and slashers, like Zandig. Like he wasn't very like he was the booker for CZW and all that, but like he wasn't that good. Um, Nowadays, sadly, hardcore wrestling is kind of in a weird state. The major company, I guess GCW is the main company now. They kind of took the CZW torch because DJ Hyde bought it from Zandig, and no one respects DJ Hyde, including his own wrestlers. Like, apparently, he does these speeches where he gets up and tells people, if you work over at GCW, you're not coming back for a job working for me. All his guys still work for GCW, and he still hires them all right back where they were. Like, no one even takes his threats seriously. They're like, all right, cut my pay. I'll just get paid somewhere else with more people watching. Now, the misconception, yeah, it's garbage, and it's like you want to know look at all the guys who are now either some of the most popular or are about to be the most popular, this is kind of the cloth that they were cut from. I mean, look at Moxley. He took a power tool to the forehead, and blood splat all over the front row from what's his name during Tournament of Death. He's AEW champion right now.
He
Or
just had an excellent match with Jake Hager that involved a lot of grappling. Like he's very good at that too. And people
And
like,
I thought that match was going to be a bloodbath, but I was,
yeah,
yeah, it was good.
well, I wouldn't have considered him like a deathmatch guy, but he was a guy who could go there, and he didn't mind the deathmatch style. Now, that's a perfect example of somebody who, like I said, but he is cut from that cloth. And like you said, CZW, look at all the big net. Look at the amount of people that went through there and where they are now. A lot of them didn't go anywhere. A lot of them just destroyed their bodies in stupid fire matches and stuff. But like, I don't know. I think without hardcore wrestling ever happening, we would have been robbed of so many great things happening. So many great things, especially the Attitude Era.
I don't want to think about like. Would you like credit like Brian Pillman for a lot of that?
No, he didn't do hardcore. He was like in his prime. He was like he was just very agile. Like he was they called him
Brian.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was not. No, he just had a good promo, and he didn't have. I don't think he had a match in ECW at all. I think he just cut promos on Shane Douglas, and then off to Vince, off to the Hart Foundation. But yeah, I think the biggest misconception is that, and also how important it really is, because we got a lot of our biggest stars from those quote unquote garbage companies. Like if ECW didn't exist, and I think Austin probably still would have had a career, but it probably would have taken a little bit too long. The thing is, though, time was ticking for Vince, and if they didn't find Austin when they did, we would be talking about AEW versus WCW right now.
Yeah.
And
imagine that future.
I mean, who knows where WCW would have went, but yeah, I guess that's the biggest misconception, is that it's kind of worthless and it's all garbage. And it's like, yeah, some of it is. If you pay attention to Twitter gifs, yeah, it looks like a bunch of crap. But if you're actually into it and you actually at least give it the time to get your respect, it'll get your respect at some point.
Yeah,
Or
but
you can just wait. What?
no, it sucks is that people don't want to give stuff time anymore. They kind of just want to just write it off without actually looking into it. You hear a lot about that in wrestling nowadays.
What's getting a lot of shit talk now is the amount of people who wrestle the same when it comes to like everybody flipping, or everybody like everyone kind of wrestles like not everybody, but a lot of young guys, they wrestle a lot like who's an example, like Teddy Hart, or fucking Jack Evans, or people like that who just overdo it with the flips. To me, that stuff looks stupid and fake.
Yo,
But
live, like I remember we went to this Impact show live, like all of us. We saw a match between Rick Swann and Teddy Hart on paper. You think, oh, this is gonna be cool, but all they kept doing was freaking flips and Canadian destroyers to each other. It was horrible. Like
And that one guy after the show, he's like, "Damn, now we have to go watch Raw."
oh yeah, we
Like,
have
what?
to. Yeah, we
You
have to.
have to? You have to watch Raw every Monday? Is Vince calling you? Are you watching Raw? Are you watching Raw right now? Why aren't you watching Raw?
why are you watching Raw? I didn't watch Raw the next night. I got no idea what happened on
I don't remember what happened on Raw the next night.
I don't remember either. Oh man.
Why are you talking about Raw?
Yeah.
That show was bizarre. The only thing I remember was Luchasaurus and Michael Elgin.
That was
That was
awesome.
great.
It was freaking
It's
awesome.
pretty fun. And I met the Great Muta, even though he did not appear. But yes.
Seeing Great Muta live was a trip. That was a trip.
Yep, there he was, just chilling. He was just sitting there.
Sadly, we didn't see him in the. Oh no, wait, we did see him at the Garden.
Yeah, the New Japan show. Yeah, that was.
I forgot. Yeah,
That was wild. All right. So, yeah, now I learned a lot more about hardcore wrestling. I think people that are listening to this, I hope they take away something from this and know that it's not just garbage shit. And there's a lot of history regarding FMW, ECW. I think people should definitely know about. So thank you so much for coming on the show and educating us. The next time you'll hear the Wrestling Caucus, we're going to talk about wrestling video games, and Elton's going to be a part of that too. So definitely subscribe. Yeah,
cool.
What? Yeah, there's a lot of yeah. So subscribe to the Wrestling Caucus anywhere you get podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram at Wrestling Caucus on Twitter, and Instagram The Wrestling Caucus, Facebook The Wrestling Caucus. And yeah, that's it. Thanks, guys.
Shout out to our mom who made a special appearance too. If you heard.
Yeah, dinner's ready.